Joining us now is Charlie Sykes, MSNBC political analyst and author of the Substack newsletter To the Contrary. Ashley Parker, staff writer at The Atlantic and an MSNBC political analyst. Julie Roginski is a Democratic strategist and author of Salty Politics newsletter on Substack. It's great to have all of you here. Ashley, is the administration's choice for everyone, for every institution, every person, you're either with us or you're against us?
I don't know that they would quite put it like that, but yes, this is how President Trump has long seen the world, that either someone is an ally or a loyalist, one of his people, one of his justices on the Supreme Court or his attorney general, or he views himself as a victim and casts himself and his supporters as victims who have grievances, who are subject to what he describes as witch hunts. And it is a very black and white with us or against us worldview. That's absolutely correct.
Julia, it was striking to me when I saw the priests being denied the right to go in and give communion. So many top administration officials are Catholic. I think that's the predominant religion among top people in the administration. You've got Vance, Rubio, Bondi, Kennedy, Duffy, Stefanik, Leavitt, border czar Tom Homan, and that's not even all of them. Do you wonder, are they okay with not allowing a priest to give communion?
Obviously. I mean, look, these are people who ostentatiously wear crosses at press briefings. These are people who invoke God and their religion all the time and sometimes try to foist it on the rest of us, but who don't follow the teachings of their own church. I mean, the Pope was very clear. This new American Pope was very clear about how we should treat the stranger, and especially obliquely talking about how the United States is treating refugees.
Well, he said pretty clearly that pro-life
means pro-life,
yeah.
Right. And look, I'm not Catholic, but I do spend a lot of time in church with my husband who is, and I can tell you that that's not any teaching that I heard in all the times that I've gone with him. People need communion if they're Catholic, and the fact that you're denying them a basic right, the fact that we had in Grand Rapids, Michigan in June, a family sheltering in a church because they wanted sanctuary, and yet on the very first day in office, Donald Trump took away sanctuary status from places like churches. That's not Christian, and I don't say that as somebody who is Christian, but I say that because I'm not, but I say that as somebody who knows enough about religion to understand that if you only read scriptures, whether the Old Testament or the New Testament, this does not apply. This is probably the biggest violation you can think of. And yet these people will stand up there tomorrow and say they're representing their religion, they'll wear their ostentatious crosses, and they'll make the rest of us feel like we're heathens or we're somehow anti-Christian or we're anti-religious. They're the ones who are a disgrace to this religion, not the rest of us.
Charlie, there's another part of this story. NBC Chicago obtained video of a Catholic priest warning churchgoers at Mass to be careful when they leave because federal agents are outside waiting. So neighbors told the station they formed a human chain, basically a pathway to guide parishioners safely home. Listen.
I felt really badly for them. I mean, they were inside, scared to come out.
I'm responding to my neighbors feeling terrified to just go to church.
I mean, regardless of your faith, is there any city in America where people aren't going to draw the line at what they see as mistreatment of their neighbors, Charlie?
Look, I think this is perhaps one of the undercovered stories of the era is the fact that this new American Pope is calling the church really to arms when it comes to this issue. So, yeah, this, I think, is probably one of the biggest developments in the resistance. Pope Leo, a pope from Chicago, has made it very, very clear that he wants the bishops to speak out more aggressively. He is speaking out more aggressively. So, this weekend we have the No Kings rally, which MAGA, and the Republicans are now describing as a Hate America rally. And I'm trying to imagine what it would look like if you had a sea of American flags and symbols of Christianity. This would be an opportunity to take back the flag from MAGA, to take back Christianity from MAGA and say, look, this is not hating America. There is nothing more pro-America than saying no kings. There is nothing more fundamentally Christian than reaching out to the stranger and to the migrants. And the Pope has clearly signaled that he intends to be very, very involved. So again, it does have that feeling that we're entering into a new phase of the resistance with a symbolism that is going to be very, very, well, more, let me put it this way, more difficult for Trump and his supporters to demonize somehow as Antifa or as people who are radical extremists.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to watch because they're expecting some of the biggest crowds maybe we've ever seen this weekend if the numbers that they're expecting prove true. I also want to talk a little bit, Ashley, about this video that came out from DHS Secretary Kristi Noem. She wanted it played at airports. Now, 8 airports have said they won't play it. Here's a little clip.
Democrats in Congress refuse to fund the federal government. And because of this, many of our operations are impacted, and most of our TSA employees are working without pay.
We know you're not supposed to use government resources for political purposes, but are we at a point where there's just so much happening that you almost can't keep up with all of it?
Well, that's always been one of Trump's superpowers, is to sort of flood the zone, always cascading from crisis to crisis or outrage to outrage. But it is interesting. You are seeing some of these major airports take a stand against playing that video. And it's important to note it's not because they don't like Secretary Noem or even they don't like President Trump. It's because they have, depending on the airport, they have rules about not, for instance, violating the Hatch Act or not allowing politics to invade basic airport functions. So again, they're taking a stand, but it's not a stance against Trump or the secretary. They're basically following these basic rules that until recently were never in dispute because no president and no secretary, Democratic or Republican, would have created such a video and a shutdown and asked for it to be played at our nation's airports.
Well, she brings up a good point, I think, Julie. I mean, is this a new norm by the administration? So you're somebody at the Buffalo airport or the Cleveland airport. You have about as non-political a job as there can possibly be. You know, you want the planes to run on time. You want to make sure everybody's safe. And now you find yourself in the middle of a political firestorm because something that the federal government is telling you they want you to play violates your own internal regulations.
I mean, look, the Hatch Act is so outdated. It goes back to when Kellyanne Conway violated it in the first Trump term and everybody kind of looked the other way. And who's going to hold Trump to account, right? Who's going to hold Kristi Noem to account? It's going to have to be this administration.
I think there's something that's not about if they get held to account. It's putting people, everyday Americans who didn't ask for it, in this
everyday
position.
Americans are being asked to make a decision in the split moment when ICE agents break down the doors of their apartments in the south side of Chicago, whether to shelter little children, little girls who are screaming because they're terrified they're going to be taken away from their mother. And in that split moment, some American citizen needs to make a decision. Do I hide this little girl or do I let masked agents take her? And that's exactly what happened last month during this ICE raid in Chicago. And a man did make the decision to shelter a little girl and told her to hide under her bed, under his bed. I say that because regular Americans are being made to make decisions that we've only read about in history books. They are heartbreaking. We're at a decision now where we have to make a moral choice between the kind of people we want to be and the kind of people this administration wants us to be. And that is something that I never thought in the 21st century as an American citizen I would ever have to face, you would ever have to face, and everybody watching here does not
There
have to
are
face.
so many choices, Charlotte. Yeah. She's right. I mean, let's take news organizations saying they won't follow Defense Secretary Hegseth's restrictions on Pentagon access, that they want to do their jobs as journalists. He posts this hand wave goodbye emoji. Is this fight worthy of a more serious response?
Yes, it is. It's very, very encouraging to see the media, all of the media, with one voice rejecting the attempts to manage the news. I mean, the bar is pretty low. I can't imagine any professional journalist or any professional journalistic organization agreeing to all of this. But once again, we're starting to see the collective action that's been sometimes absent. I think that a lot of Americans, and to Julie's point about the moral choice people have to make, courage is contagious. And when you see other entities standing up, doing the right thing, reminding themselves what these fundamental values are, I do think it emboldens them. And this is across the board, looking at that picture, from right to left. Every legitimate news organization in America essentially saying to Pete Hegseth, I'm sorry, this is still the United States of America, and what you are doing violates the First Amendment. If this goes to court, there's no possibility that the Trump administration will win, but this is a fight worth having. And if Pete Hegseth wants to behave like a juvenile, well, then that is his choice. But this is a stand that American journalists had to make, and it's very encouraging that they're making it.
Actually, President Obama got involved in this conversation. He encouraged law firms, university presidents, businesses, which of course have all faced pressure to back the Trump administration policies, to take a stand. And some of them, have. And then we've seen the pictures of everyday Americans who are taking a stand. We'll see if, literally millions of people come out into the streets of America this weekend for this protest. I guess my question is, even if they do, even if they continue to, will it make a difference?
If the people come out and continue to protest,
if people continue to reject these policies, if people in their own ways, whether it's somebody at an ICE detention facility saying, no, we're going to form a human chain in our neighborhood to protect our neighbors, or it's people going out and doing a bike ride or marching through the streets of a city.
Tonight's discussion illuminated a powerful truth. We are living through a moment of deep moral testing in America. The stories shared, from priests being denied access to their own parishioners to children hiding under beds in fear of government raids, paint a picture that is not just political, but profoundly human. At its core, this conversation wasn't about policies, religion, or party lines. It was about what kind of nation we are choosing to become. On one hand, we've heard how political power is being used to reshape moral boundaries, redefining what it means to be Christian, patriotic, or even American. On the other, we've seen ordinary people, neighbors, churchgoers, journalists, quietly and courageously standing up to say, no, this is not who we are. There's an emotional tension here between fear and faith, between authority and conscience. When citizens have to form human chains outside churches to protect their neighbors from arrest, it challenges every notion of safety and compassion we claim to stand for. When journalists have to fight for the simple right to report the truth, it reminds us that freedom isn't self-sustaining. It demands vigilance. What we're witnessing now is the slow, painful tug-of-war between two competing versions of America, one built on loyalty to power and another built on loyalty to principle, between those who weaponize religion and those who live it through empathy, between those who flood the zone with chaos and those still trying to make sense of the noise. But amid all this, there's also hope. Courage, as Charlie Sykes said, is contagious. When one person takes a moral stand, a journalist refusing to bend, a neighbor protecting a child, a church opening its doors, others follow. Small acts of moral clarity ripple outward, restoring a sense of decency that political systems alone can't provide. So, the real question isn't just whether protests will fill the streets this weekend or whether millions will march. It's whether the quiet choices made by millions of Americans in their daily lives, in workplaces, congregations, neighborhoods, will reaffirm who we truly are as a people. Will we define ourselves by the fear we allow or by the compassion we show? Will we look away when institutions bend to power? Or will we demand better, not as partisans, but as citizens bound by shared conscience? That's the challenge before us tonight. It's not about one leader, one law, or one moment. It's about the legacy we leave, whether we hand future generations a nation guided by moral courage or one weakened by moral compromise. If you found this report insightful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more real, fact-based news commentary, because the truth only matters if we choose to keep it alive.